You're looking here at the first mainstream family car developed from scratch around both conventional combustion and plug-in hybrid power. Few expected Mitsubishi to be first to market with such a thing, but with this third-generation Outlander crossover model, the brand stole a march on many of its rivals and aims to consolidate its advantage with this improved version. It's spacious, practical, reasonably capable off-road, and can even make its own kind of eco-statement with supermini-style running costs. You can't ask much more from family transport than that.
Welcome to the car that's rejuvenated Mitsubishi's sales in this country, the third generation Outlander SUV. The reason why can be explained with four simple letters: PHEV. Industry-leading plug-in hybrid technology has given the Japanese brand an advantage over most of its rivals in this segment, giving the Mitsubishi marque a degree of notoriety in our market that it hasn't had for years. If connecting into petrol-electric power isn't for you, or you want a car of this kind to have 7 seats, then there's also a conventional diesel version. Either way, this Mark III model Outlander's been significantly revised, and our job here is to put this improved car to the test. The relatively few plug-in hybrid models that the market has seen to date haven't exactly set the sales charts on fire, but Mitsubishi seems to have worked out how to sell this kind of car, and the payback's been substantial since it launched the Outlander PHEV in 2014, a year after the diesel version made its debut. Of the 12,000 plug-in hybrid vehicles registered in the UK in 2015, around 10,000 of them were Outlanders. It helps that this Japanese brand has been able to price this advanced technology so closely to the diesel alternative. But overall, you just have to say that the company's simply done a better job than its rivals in communicating to customers the benefits of being able to plug their cars in and get all-electric, fuel-free commuting mileage. Of course, smart as Mitsubishi's PHEV technology is, there are limits to the cleverness of the company's talented engineers. The bulkiness of the mechanicals needed with plug-in Outlander motoring prevents the petrol-electric variant offering the useful third-row seating that you get in the conventional diesel version. And for the same reason, the PHEV variant's fuel tank is smaller too, which is one of the reasons why this derivative offers you a significantly lower total operating range. In addition, although pricing is still competitive, changes to the government's plug-in hybrid grant now mean a premium for the PHEV versions that wasn't there before. For all these reasons, the 2.2-litre DID diesel variant of this car still very much has its place in the range, even though it's currently outsold 3-to-1 by its more sophisticated stablemate. As we said at the beginning, both versions have been substantially revised, with a package of Mark III model changes announced in the autumn of 2015 that brought sharper styling, greater refinement, improved handling dynamics and a smarter cabin. These are finishing touches to what was, on paper, already a very complete product. Time to try it. So, there are two very distinct kinds of Outlander driving experience. One gives you the gruff but urgent note of 2.2-litre DI diesel power, and the other delivers the potential for silent, all-electric PHEV plug-in hybrid motoring that beyond commuting distances can be extended by automatic activation of a refined 4-cylinder petrol power plant. The vast majority of Outlander buyers go the PHEV route, so that's what we're testing here. Quiet, isn't it? That's because we're in all-electric mode, a state of affairs that Mitsubishi claims can be maintained for up to 32.5 miles if you start off with the batteries full of juice, although in our test we've found that figure to be more typically in the mid-20s. Regardless, what we have here is a very clever piece of engineering. Simpler four-wheel drive hybrid models use an engine to power the front wheels and an electric motor to move those at the rear. This Outlander's twin motor four-wheel drive system, though, uses 2 electric motors, one to drive each axle, so creating a much more convincing degree of all-wheel capability. Both the motors are fed by a 12 kilowatt-hour battery mounted between those axles, and each generates about 80 brake horsepower, although the rear one develops a bit more torque because it has to power the rear wheels on its own without any help from the 2-litre petrol engine. The whole setup develops a combined output of 200 brake horsepower, although the almost instant torque supplied by the electrical element of this total makes the car feel quicker than that. With this revised model, this trait has been further emphasised by tweaks that Mitsubishi has made to the hybrid system, these shaving a couple of seconds from the rest to 25 miles per hour acceleration figure. By the time you get to 62 miles an hour, the electrical impulse has calmed down, hence a relatively unremarkable 11-second figure that's very similar to what you get in the comparable 147 brake horsepower 2.2 litre diesel model. At the top end, the diesel strides ahead with a 124 miles per hour top speed that's 18 miles an hour up on the PHEV version, thanks to that hybrid variant's need to cart around about 235 kilograms of extra weight. Fortunately, you don't notice that extra bulk too much during day-to-day driving that in this PHEV model can be conducted in your choice of 3 different so-called intelligent motion settings. The first of these, EV drive mode, I've already mentioned. It's the one in which, as here, there's no engine input and the front and electric motors move the car using only stored electricity from the drive battery. In this setting, you can theoretically travel at up to 74 miles an hour. Should the need arise for sudden acceleration or the battery charge have run down, then the car will seamlessly switch into its second series hybrid mode. Here, the petrol engine chimes in, not to drive the car, but to act as a generator, supplying power to the electric motors. If that's not enough for either performance or the driving range you need, then your Outlander will finally, almost reluctantly, automatically switch into its third parallel hybrid mode, which adds the resources of the petrol engine driving the front wheels. Even here, though, you can be replenishing the battery's charge for future use by maximising the amount of regenerative braking energy that the car can harvest when you slow it down. Pushing this auto gear lever into its B setting is one way of doing this, but you can be more proactive about it by using the paddles behind the steering wheel. Initially, you assume that these are for flipping up and down the auto gearbox that you have to have on a car of this kind. In this case, though, they allow you to either increase or decrease the regenerative braking effect. Dial it up and you'll find that a lot of the time the car will slow itself without the need for you to brake at all. It's all part of a different kind of driving technique that you'll have to learn with this Mitsubishi, but which, once mastered, quickly becomes second nature. Of course, that won't suit everyone. Those likely to be regularly covering long distances or needing extra torque for towing will be better off choosing the diesel Outlander model. Here, after all, the more conventional engine produces a heftier 380 newton-meters of torque, and that raises the 1,500 kilogram brake towing capacity figure that you get with this PHEV model, enough only for a small to medium-sized caravan, to a 2,000 kilogram total that'll be sufficient to allow you to tug around something a little more substantial. That kind of pulling power gives the diesel Outlander an advantage in off-road conditions too. Although, to be fair, the PHEV version also gives a good account of itself here, actually providing a slightly better 22.5 degree departure angle than its stablemate. The diesel has a slightly better ramp breakover angle capability, 21 degrees, and both variants feature the same 21 degree approach angle. To be honest, we wouldn't advise you to regularly put any of this to the test. Although wheel articulation is pretty good, there's no hill descent control to help you out on slippery slopes, and in all its guises, this car is somewhat limited by its modest 190mm ride height. Still, if you should get your Outlander stranded somewhere where you really oughtn't to have ventured in the first place, you'll be glad of the four-wheel drive lock mode that all variants provide. Here, the electronically operated clutch pack splits drive 50-50 between the front and rear axles to deliver all the grip that you're going to get. Of course, it's much more relevant to talk about this car's capability on tarmac. Mitsubishi has done its best to improve things here with this revised model, tweaking the suspension, increasing the size of the rear shock absorbers and introducing a stiffer front suspension crossmember in a bid to try and deal with the pitchy, floaty handling that characterised the original version of this car, particularly in its PHEV guise. Partly, these changes have had some effect. The steering, though still a bit lighter than we'd like, is now a little more accurate and responsive. You do still get a little more body roll, though, than you would find with comparable rival models, especially in this hybrid version. And if you're going through bends at speed, you really need to have a care if you're not to make your passengers begin to feel queasy. Drive through the turns more sedately though, and this Outlander feels no worse than most of its SUV rivals. Plus, you'll enjoy the fact that the car offers a more compliant ride than most of them. Thick glass, plenty of sound insulation, and sophisticated engine mounts mean greater refinement too, especially of course in this battery-assisted PHEV variant. Mitsubishi reckons that no fewer than 40 measures have been taken in all versions of this revised model to reduce levels of noise, vibration and harshness, and the results are impressive. This improved third generation Outlander certainly looks a whole lot sharper than the original version of this Mark III model did. In place of the rather apologetic looks of that car, we're now treated to a smarter, more confident styling, exemplifying what Mitsubishi calls its fresh dynamic shield design direction. That's given us a lower, leaner and wider body shape, yet one still continuing with the high flanks, the raised belt line, the uncluttered surfaces and the strong shouldering that originally defined this model. The main changes have been incorporated here at the front end, now characterised by these bold chrome streaks, sleeker headlamps and a body-coloured finish for the corner bumper sections and the lower bodywork. Other improvements include a smarter chrome grille, a new design air down with a chrome-plated insert, restyled fog lamps and revised bumpers that have added 40mm to the overall vehicle length. Those extra millimetres aren't especially obvious in themselves, but view the car in profile and they do give it a slightly lower and sleeker look than before. Apart from the restyled front wings and the smarter 18-inch alloy wheels, not much has changed when you view the car from this perspective, but we continue to be impressed by the way that the styling artfully disguises the size of the design. It's actually about the same length as a Kia Sorento SUV, an apparently much larger car. Move to the back and once more the emphasis has been placed on creating something more universally acceptable in this segment. You've got the redesigned bumper that I mentioned and a smarter set of LED tail lamps, while this shark fin style roof antenna aims to add a smart finishing touch. Time to take a seat behind the wheel, where efforts have clearly been made to give the interior a bit of a lift over the plasticky, utilitarian feel that characterised the previous model. That car was the first Mitsubishi to feature soft touch plastics, but you wouldn't have known it to look around its relatively unappealing cabin. This time around, a smarter dashboard, padded door panels and a stitched instrument cowl all add to the ambience. Even the wood panelling, something Japanese brands don't tend to do very well, looks quite nice where it features on the doors and on the front passenger fascia panel. Overall, while the finished effect isn't quite up to the kind of thing that you would find in an Audi or a BMW, it's now much closer to those sorts of standards. Everything's easy to use too, although some of the big chunky buttons are a little hard to find and the sat-nav and stereo can be fiddly to use. And that's because you don't get the kind of intuitive iDrive style infotainment system that a prestige brand would provide. Still, the high-definition 7-inch colour touchscreen you do get is much better than it was before, framed in a gloss black panel above the climate control switchgear and featuring larger on-screen buttons and smarter graphics. From here, you access the usual navigation, stereo, media and Bluetooth phone features, plus on the PHEV version, a wide range of eco-driving support data. The things you more commonly interact with are much better too, with a classier silver-trimmed joystick-style gear lever next to the handbrake that, rather surprisingly for such a futuristic car, is of the conventional kind. The smarter four-spoke, leather-stitched multifunction steering wheel is an improvement too, heated on plusher models like this one, and featuring a redesigned button layout that's easy to get to grips with. Through it you glimpse a well-designed instrument binnacle with two big dials separated by bar graphs showing your remaining fuel and your remaining battery charge, above which you can scroll through displays that brief you on the percentage of all-electric driving that you've done and also give you trip computer data. There's an at-a-glance version of the fascinating energy flow meter that you'll find more sophisticatedly displayed on the centre dash screen, showing what's being charged by what. What else? Well, the seats are much better. Entry-level versions featuring a durable material called C-Tech that stays warm in winter and cool in summer by reflecting UV rays. If you stretch to a version like this one with leather trim, then you get redesigned facings with much softer hide and smart silver stitching. Less impressive is storage provision around the cabin. I mean, really, Mitsubishi has done the minimum here. That means two cup holders ahead of the gear stick, the usual centre storage box between the seats with USB and 12-volt sockets, plus a glove box and door bins that really aren't especially big. Moving back into the second row, there's reasonable space for two adults, or three at a squash, with the third person's course aided by the way that the central transmission tunnel has been kept usefully low. Taller folk may feel the need to recline back the adjustable backrests, and in a diesel model they'll be able to slide this bench backwards and forwards through a 250mm range, something not possible on this PHEV variant thanks to the battery pack situated beneath the seat. That bulky battery pack also prevents PHEV buyers getting something else that you can have on the diesel model, a third seating row. Where fitted, these extra chairs are really only intended for children, but they are separate, properly sprung seats with integral head restraints and reclining backrests. Finally, let's take a look at the luggage space out back. Now, a little disappointingly, you get a one-piece tailgate rather than the split folding affair found on the old second-generation Outlander model. Perhaps because Mitsubishi wanted to follow the current fashion of providing optional power operation, which I'm sure they want us to show off here. It's a pity it opens slower than your father-in-law's wallet, though. Once raised, you find revealed luggage space that, with a diesel model, would necessarily be very small if all three seating rows were to be in use, just 128 litres. Here in this 5-seat only PHEV version, there's 731 litres of space, only 50 litres less than you get in the diesel version with the luggage area chairs folded. Rather curiously here, the cup holders from the diesel model's third row seating are retained, along with a narrow storage tray. If you need more space, then folding the second row backrest frees up 1.85 metres of floor length, although you can't extend that with the kind of fold flat front passenger seat that some rivals offer. Still, the space provided here is likely to be sufficient for the needs of most owners. If you were to load to the headlining, then you'd have up to 1,472 litres of space in this PHEV variant, or as much as 1,608 litres if you were to choose the diesel model. The original version of the Outlander PHEV was able to maintain direct price parity with its diesel stablemate thanks to the government plug-in grant that provided a generous £5,000 towards the price of purchase. Unfortunately, changes to that grant have since halved this figure, meaning that there's now a £2,500 premium for choosing a PHEV Outlander over an equivalently spec'd 2.2 litre DID version with an automatic gearbox. As you might know, all PHEV models are automatic only. Still, the tax and running cost savings that come with plug-in hybrid technology will, for many owners, still make the petrol-electric version the more cost-effective choice. A few more specifics with regard to Outlander pricing. Well, we'll start by assuming that you don't want the commercial vehicle version of this car, badged as a for-work variant, and instead want to peruse conventional passenger versions of this Outlander. And for one of those, Mitsubishi quotes an entry-level price figure around £25,000, but that only gets you a diesel model with 5 seats and a rather basic entry-level GX2 level of trim that isn't offered to PHEV buyers. The 7-seat diesel Outlander variants are offered with either GX3 or GX4 trim levels, and for one of those, you'll probably be paying somewhere in the £28,000 to £33,000 bracket, with a £1,650 premium to find on top of the cost of the chosen version if you want an automatic gearbox, and add £1,500 more if you want full leather trim. Outlander PHEV model pricing starts at around £32,000 once the government contribution of around £2,500 has been subtracted from the initial asking price. Still, within a £35,000 budget, you should be able to get yourself an example of the well-specified GX3H version of this petrol-electric model, the one that most customers choose. Yes, even if you pay the extra for leather trim. Go for a really plush derivative like the car we have here, and asking figures then rise towards £39,000 through GX4H and GX4HS variants. On to the value proposition that these kinds of figures represent. Something that we have to say is rather difficult to quantify in the case of this PHEV version. True, Audi and BMW have developed plug-in hybrid engines for their compact SUVs, but they will charge you an awful lot more for them. A closer rival, you might think, is the petrol-electric version of Toyota's RAV4. That car, though, offers you older-style hybrid technology of the non-plug-in variety, so you won't get the important all-electric commuting range that creates this Mitsubishi's incredible-sounding fuel and CO2 figures. Otherwise, if you want a plug-in hybrid engine in a family car with 4-wheel drive, you'll have to stretch to a conventional estate, Volvo's V60 D6 twin-engine model, which costs the best part of £50,000. If you need to spend less than that and yet remain committed to plug-in hybrid technology, then you'll need to settle for a smaller 2-wheel drive car. Specifically, premium compact hatchbacks like Volkswagen's Golf GTE and Audi's A3 Sportback e-tron, which sell in the £30,000 to £35,000 bracket once you've subtracted that government grant. Most potential Outlander PHEV buyers, of course, aren't wedded to the idea of plug-in hybrid power. They're simply intrigued by it as an alternative to the usual diesel SUV choices in the segment. So, does it stack up when viewed from that perspective? Well, we'd say yes. A highly specified top 4-wheel drive diesel version of a mainstream family crossover contender like Ford's Kuga, Volkswagen's Tiguan, Mazda's CX-5 or Nissan's Qashqai or X-Trail models wouldn't save you very much over an Outlander PHEV. While with an equivalent 4-wheel drive diesel Honda CR-V, BMW X3 or Audi Q5, you could easily end up paying more than Mitsubishi is asking here. Finally, if you're shopping in this sector and making comparisons, make sure you're comparing apples with apples. Smaller premium badge crossovers like BMW's X1 and Audi's Q3 can easily sell for Outlander money, but they'll give you much less luggage space. We'd also point out that a diesel-powered Toyota RAV4 can't really compare to any version of this Mitsubishi because Toyota doesn't offer 4-wheel drive with that engine. And comparisons with similarly priced SUVs like Land Rover's Discovery Sport, Kia's Sorento and Hyundai's Santa Fe aren't really relevant because unlike this 5-seat only PHEV Outlander model, all those cars are 7-seaters. In fact, the Discovery Sport, the Sorento and the Santa Fe actually compare to this Outlander in the diesel guise that will enable this Mitsubishi to offer 7 seats. If that prospect does tempt you towards a version of this car that has that more conventional 2.2-litre DID power plant, then you'll find its value proposition is, again, pretty good. Go for an Outlander with 3 seating rows and you'll be paying the same kind of money that you'd need for a rival Kia Sorento, but getting yourself a significantly more economical car. And this Mitsubishi can undercut an equivalent Discovery Sport or Santa Fe by over £4,000. In fact, if you are looking at a 7-seat family SUV in this class, only SsangYong's Rexton can significantly undercut this Mitsubishi, and that car's clunkier to drive and will cost you a lot more to run. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that this is what you want, then you're going to need to know exactly how generous Mitsubishi has been when it comes to standard spec. Well, let's see. All Outlander models get on-demand four-wheel drive with a lock mode for sticky situations, plus roof rails, colour-keyed rear spoiler and daytime running lights. There's also an alarm, all-round electric windows, and on the diesel version, a proper space-saver spare wheel. Inside, there's a 6-speaker CD stereo with iPod compatibility and a USB port, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, dual-zone climate control, an adjustable speed limiter, cruise control and a trip computer. The PHEV range starts with a slightly higher GX3 level of spec, and GX3 is also the minimum you have to have if you want a diesel model with 7 seats. At this level in the range, you also get additional niceties like 18-inch alloy wheels, rear privacy glass, power folding mirrors, rear parking sensors, front fog lamps, keyless entry with an engine start-stop button, auto headlamps and wipers, Bluetooth phone connectivity and leather for the steering wheel and the gear stick. Go for the PHEV engine and you also get the option of a specific GX3H Plus trim level that adds in a few more key extras that Mitsubishi has found buyers of the plug-in hybrid version tend to want, namely heated seats and a smartphone app that, amongst other things, allows you to preheat the car via an included electric heater. If you want to go further, then GX4 trim beckons. This is a spec you have to have if you want the 7-inch high-definition centre dashboard colour infotainment screen with its SD card navigation system and DAB radio. At GX4 level, you also get auto-levelling LED headlamps, an electric sunroof, a reversing camera, a powered tailgate, leather trim and electric heated front seats. Go for the PHEV version and Mitsubishi will also throw in a steering wheel heater and a clever 360-degree camera system that displays on that infotainment screen. With this particular car, we've gone as far as you can go in this Outlander lineup and opted for the top GX4 HS spec that you can only get with petrol-electric power. The S designation stands for safety, a reference to the fact that the very complete tally of GX4 features are built upon with this variant by a range of cutting-edge electronic safety items. Here, a lane departure warning system can stop you from drifting out of your lane on the highway. An adaptive cruise control setup can automatically keep you a safe distance behind the car in front at cruising speeds. And front parking sensors will give you a little more peace of mind when finding a space. There's also one of those forward collision mitigation systems that scans the road ahead as you drive at urban speeds, looking for potential accident hazards. Now, if one's detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or you aren't able to, then braking will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Finally, there's also one feature that we haven't seen before, Mitsubishi's unintended acceleration mitigation system. This detects cars parked to your front or your rear when you're starting up and, if necessary, will actually automatically brake your Outlander to prevent accidents that might otherwise be caused by unintended acceleration. Neat. As for more conventional stuff, well, most of what you'd expect to find is included. Mitsubishi is especially proud of its RISE, or Reinforced Impact Safety Evolution system, which aims to disperse energy loads during side and rear crashes and controls distortion, enhances occupant protection, and also helps to protect the fuel system in the event of a rear impact. In addition, there's all the more conventional stuff too, so every variant gets ISOFIX child seat fastenings, a pedestrian-friendly front bonnet and bumper, and twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a driver's knee bag. There's also all the expected electronic assistance too. Stability control, hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and a very effective MASTC setup, the Mitsubishi Active Stability and Traction Control System. Plus, if you stamp on the anti-lock brakes in an emergency, the hazard warning lights are automatically activated to warn following motorists. This all helps to explain this car's 5-star Euro NCAP rating in independent independent tests in which it achieved a perfect 100% score in the active safety category. And that'll be reassuring for potential family buyers. On to options. Delve into the accessories list and you'll find the usual extra cost personalisation features, things like side sill extensions, all manner of roof racks and carrying systems, cosmetic corner extensions for the front and rear bumpers, and the usual mats and flap sets. Plus, many owners will want to fit a tow bar, and there's the option of either metallic or pearlescent paint if you want it. If you're amongst the 83% of Outlander buyers who'll be wanting the PHEV plug-in hybrid version that we're trying here, then it's likely that you'll have been attracted to this car by a pretty compelling set of stats. As before, there's no vehicle excise duty or London congestion charge to pay, and company drivers could potentially save a fortune when it comes to benefit-in-kind tax. More on that in a minute. We'll begin though with this petrol-electric model's eye-catching fuel and emissions figures, stats that have got sharper still with this revised model. Thanks to more refined engine management software that's been able to maximise this hybrid powertrain's efficiency, the combined cycle fuel economy of this updated Outlander PHEV has improved from 148 to 156 miles per gallon, and CO2 emissions are enhanced from 44 to 42 grams per kilometre. Yes, you heard those figures right. Every plug-in hybrid model quotes such astounding statistics, and in every case, the real-world driving reality is, in truth, rather different. Still, it's hardly Mitsubishi's fault that, rather unforgivably, the NEDC, New European Driving Cycle testing procedure, still hasn't got its head around how to evaluate the efficiency of plug-in hybrid cars. The organisation's problem is easy to appreciate. Just how do you work out the likely returns of a model like this? To explain the difficulty, let's take two wildly divergent scenarios. In the first, you're nipping down to the nearby shops in no hurry, the hybrid system topped up with battery charge for full electric mobility. And that obviously means you'd consume no fuel and emit zero emissions on your journey. The second scenario, though, is very different. Here you've exhausted the electric-only range that this car can give you, quoted by Mitsubishi as 32.5 miles, but in our experience, a figure somewhere in the mid-20s. You're very late for an appointment too, or maybe for the school run, and you've a long section of empty cross-country motoring to complete to catch up time. Now in that situation, pushing the petrol engine to its maximum, you might be lucky to see 30 miles per gallon. What it all boils down to is that your actual returns with this Outlander PHEV will end up pitching themselves somewhere between these two extremes and will be heavily influenced by your lifestyle and the way that you drive the car. If your motoring life is mainly made up of short journeys and you don't want the sort of range anxiety you get in the kind of Nissan Leaf style all-electric car that in typical driving would probably grind to a halt after about 80 miles, then this plug-in Mitsubishi might well offer a perfect solution. You'd certainly be a virtual stranger at your local filling station. If, though, like some business buyers, you spend your life covering long distances on major roads and motorways, the truth is that a comparable Outlander 2.2-litre DID diesel model might ultimately prove to be a cleaner and more frugal choice. For comparison, Mitsubishi quotes that DID variant as being able to deliver 53.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 139 grams per kilometre of CO2 in manual form, or 48.7 miles per gallon and 154 grams per kilometre in more comparable automatic guise. These figures are aided by an engine stop-start system and depend on the driver selecting the diesel version's four-wheel drive eco driving mode, which pushes power primarily to the front wheels. Well, along with strong residuals and low servicing costs, those returns give the diesel version of the Mitsubishi a running cost advantage over many of its rivals. Industry experts reckon that an Outlander 2.2-litre DID would cost you 54.4 pence per mile to run. That's significantly less than you'd have to find to run an equivalent Honda CR-V, for example. For us, though, as for so many potential Outlander owners, the PHEV technology's benefits remain compelling. If all you cover each day is a typical school run or commuting distance, you might never have to fuel the thing. And if you do have to venture further afield, then there's a claimed cruising range of around 541 miles using both battery and petrol modes. And we should point out that this figure is quite a bit less than you get with a diesel Outlander, and that's something that's partly due to the fact that this PHEV model's 45-litre fuel tank is 15 litres smaller. Still, if as a driver you're able to maximise what you do have, it should be sufficient for most family needs. The extent to which that'll be possible will depend upon the success you have in getting the best from all the various different bits of technology provided. We'll start with this Eco Mode button on the dash, a function that focuses all of the car's systems on maximum frugality, limiting, for example, the energy drain from the air conditioner. Then there are these two buttons by the gear stick. The save one will conserve the car's electric charge until you want to activate it, so that if your journey starts with a motorway run that would inefficiently use your stored electric charge, you can save that capability until you're able to get more from it, say in the kind of urban driving that you might do at the end of a journey. There's also a charge button that, on the move, or even while stationary, can use the petrol engine to proactively recharge the hybrid system's electrical elements as you drive. To be frank though, in our experience, the extra fuel you use doing this tends to cancel out the battery benefits. A more proactive way of maximising your all-electric driving range is to make as much use as you can of regenerative braking. This is a process that charges the battery as you move by recycling energy that you would otherwise lose when you slow the car down. You can increase that braking regeneration and therefore up the energy harvested and maintain your battery charge for longer in two ways. Now, first by pushing this auto gear lever into its B setting, and second by using these steering wheel paddles, which allow you to either increase or decrease the regenerative effect. I know that all sounds rather complicated, but actually after a few weeks of living with this car, it all becomes quite second nature. The extent to which you can charge this Mitsubishi up from the mains is obviously going to make quite a difference to your overall running costs. Doing so inevitably takes a lot less time than it would in a comparable full electric car, say that Nissan Leaf model I mentioned, or maybe something like a Volkswagen e-Golf. And that's because the batteries of a plug-in hybrid model like this one are much smaller. Powering this Mitsubishi up from a 13 amp domestic socket would take 5 hours, but if you're out and about and you can find a 16 amp public charging point, then that time will reduce to 3.5 hours. If you can find one of those so-called rapid charging points springing up around the country or available at many Mitsubishi dealers, then you'll be able to charge your batteries up from 0 to 80% in just 30 minutes. To use a public charging point, you'll need to get yourself a swipe card from your local council, which may or may not include the parking fee and the electricity you'll be using. Back at home, the price of that electricity will also, of course, be another influencing cost factor. If you've opted for a trim level that gives you Mitsubishi's remote control app, you'll be able to set charging times to take advantage of cheaper nighttime electricity rates. Plus, via the app, you'll be able to preset the climate control to reach a certain temperature at a predetermined point. This will mean that in the height of winter or summer, you won't have to draw heavily from the battery in warming or cooling the car once you start off. There are other win-win scenarios for PHEV motoring too if your comparison was with diesel power, the biggest one being the benefit-in-kind tax savings for company buyers that we alluded to earlier. Those unlikely sounding official fuel and CO2 figures I quoted at the beginning may realistically be pie in the sky, but the important thing is that the government believes them, which is why, as you probably already know, hybrids, particularly plug-in hybrids, attract a much lower benefit-in-kind company car tax rating than diesels. In the case of the Outlander PHEV model, it's VED Band A, so with this variant you'll pay a BIK rate of just 5%, which will see a 40% taxpayer having to fork out less than £65 a month. That's just under £780 a year, and that is massively different to the amount you'd have to give the Chancellor were you to choose a comparable diesel engine SUV of this kind. How much different? Well, I'll give you some examples. Over a typical 3-year ownership period, the benefit-in-kind tax savings you get in running this petrol-electric Outlander would equate to £9,418 over a Honda CR-V 1.6i D-Tech, £10,285 over a comparable Audi Q5 2-litre S-Line Plus, and £10,673 over a rival BMW X3 xDrive 30D. Now that makes you think, doesn't it? What else? Well, there's reasonably affordable insurance rated at Group 25E, although that rating does fall to Group 22E if you go for the top GX4 HS version that we're trying here with all its advanced electronic safety equipment. Those figures compare with the 26E or 27E groupings you get with a diesel-powered Outlander model. Residual values aren't too bad either. Independent experts reckoning that after the usual industry standard 3-year, 60,000 mile ownership period, this Outlander PHEV should still be worth between 33.7 and 36.4% of what you originally paid for it. For the diesel version, the figures vary between 31.9% and 39.3%, depending on the trim level that you choose. There's a decent 5-year warranty too, though it is limited to 62,500 miles. Volkswagen, Audi and BMW plug-in hybrid models are only covered for 3 years. The battery in this car, it should be said, is covered by its own separate 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty package. Buyers also get a 12-year anti-corrosion perforation warranty and 3 years of pan-European roadside and home assistance. Finally, we'll talk servicing. Whatever kind of Outlander you choose, it'll need a servicing visit every 12,500 miles or every 12 months, whichever comes first. But over 90% of owners cover their maintenance costs in advance by taking out the comprehensive Mitsubishi service plan that for £500 gives 3 years of garage cover. This deals with all scheduled services, labour costs and consumables like filters, oils and fluids. You can see why Mitsubishi is doing so well with this Outlander model in our market. Some of the technology here is genuinely forward-thinking, even if you don't opt for a plug-in hybrid variant that has set new standards, not only for crossovers and SUVs of this kind, but also for family cars as a whole. Which is worth knowing, for if you're looking at a car of this kind, then this might not be one of the first ones you'd initially consider. Perhaps it should be, though. The diesel variant offers capable off-road traction, impressive towing capability and space for 7 at pricing able to undercut obvious rivals. The petrol-electric PHEV version, meanwhile, delivers all the advantages of plug-in hybrid technology, not least that if you only use it for commuting distances, you'll never have to fuel the thing. It's true that plug-in hybrid engineering is no longer unique to this Outlander in this segment, but it's still the case that only Mitsubishi can bring it to you with realistic pricing, which is important. And no matter how clever, frugal or capable a car is, it's hard to make the sums add up if it's ridiculously priced up front. And that's a trap that German prestige brands often fall into. Their models tend to try and compensate with the kind of premium look and feel that this third-generation Outlander was conspicuously lacking at launch, but it's much closer to providing in this improved guise. It certainly now makes a much smarter driveway statement. To go with a financial statement that's difficult to beat. Other family SUV rivals may be able to offer more power, sharper handling and fancier cabins, but they struggle to match this Mitsubishi's all-round ownership proposition. In summary, what we have here is the kind of complete product this brand has long needed for style-conscious folk with kids and active lifestyles. It's unexpectedly clever, unexpectedly effective, and unexpectedly Mitsubishi.